I don't know why, but she said to everyone, yeah, Nicole's working on hitting her first million. And I wasn't, because I had never said that to her. I had never thought it before. We did everything organically till I was at about $500,000 a year in revenue. I've never concerned myself with SEO, not once in this business. Like, I don't even care at all. I basically still use the strategy that I teach in that program, become a really good listener and speak to people where they are.
This is the Content Capitalists Podcast. We talk to business owners who've used video to grow their businesses to $1 million a year or more. How they did it, what worked, what didn't. Welcome to the Content Capitalists with your host, Ken Okazaki.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Content Capitalist Podcast, where I have conversations with people who are making at least $1 million in the business and doing that off the back of creating great content and educating their audience. Today, I have with me somebody who was a client and is actually, like, I gotta admit, I love watching her stuff because the way she does it, it's raw, it's real. And not only do I see it, but her audience sees it too. And I think, and we're gonna unpack this, but I think that that's one of the reasons she's been as successful as she is. Nicole Spencer, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
Awesome. You know, I gotta say that there's a difference, and I think you feel it too. When some people are presenting, they say all the right words, maybe the same words as you or somebody else, but you just feel like they're posturing, right? And then there are people who maybe don't see all the right words, but you love them even more because of how they present themselves. And I've watched thousands of hours of videos and worked with hundreds of clients. And you're one of those people that I don't feel like it's scripted. I feel like there's very little filter between here or here and here, and that's the real you that comes out. So I want to unpack how that works. But before I take over the whole show, because this is about you, could you tell us for the audience, what is it you do? And just a brief of what your business is about.
Yeah, so I would consider myself to be mostly a marketing mentor for online coaches, especially in the startup phase of their business. My background is in the health and fitness industry. And so I worked in corporate fitness, and then I owned and sold a brick and mortar fitness boot camp. And I actually did fitness business coaching, working for another company for 3.5 years until about 5 years ago. I parted ways with them and started my own company. And so when I first started my company, which is called Authentic Conversion, it was really to kind of do similar things, to work with gym owners and trainers and things like that. And really over the years, it has evolved to supporting a wide variety of different online coaches, really from the startup phase to scaling into six figures, multiple six figures. And I have a few that I think will probably hit 7 figures next year, which is really exciting.
That is super cool. And is this mostly in the US or is this like global, your audience?
No, we definitely have clients everywhere. Mostly US. We get a lot of Canadian clients, a lot of UK clients, and Australia as well. I do have one in Japan right now. I've got a bunch from different places in Eastern Europe right now, which is fun. But yeah, I love having that kind of global business.
Awesome. Now, I've worked with a few people who have this cross, like a blend between a background of fitness and then they happen to be really good at coaching and running a business. And do you think that there's some overlap between like the discipline and the patience it takes to build your body and get to certain competitions or to sculpt your body in the way you want and being successful in business? Or do you think that's random?
No, I definitely think that there's overlap. What's interesting from my experience is for most of my experience, and I certainly wouldn't generalize this to everyone, but I think that if I look at successful entrepreneurs in the coaching space specifically, you'll find most of them, even if their specialty isn't fitness, that most of them are attentive at least to their health and fitness. And I think that a lot of the same levels of focus and discipline are required to achieve both, for sure. I wish I could say that everyone in the fitness industry had the same discipline with their business. I have not found that to be true. And I think, we all have different values and priorities and things like that. And I actually find it much easier to be disciplined with my business than my fitness now. But I'm committed. It's a habit. So I definitely think that there is I definitely think there's some overlap, especially when you look at like successful professionals and how they take care of themselves.
Got it.
Yeah.
And okay. So you guys, I would recommend, if you're listening to just the audio, then go Google Nicole Spencer. She's beautiful, she's fit, and she's really successful. And if you're watching the video, then click down below. We're going to have all the links to her socials down below, Instagram and Facebook and everywhere else she is. Now, I think when people see people like you who are successful entrepreneurs who have, healthy bodies, they've got healthy businesses, and have some level of success, I think a lot of people might feel intimidated, like I can't achieve that, right? Or that's too difficult. Or they look in the mirror and they see such a big gap. Or they look at their bank account and they see a big gap. So what I want to do is take us way back to before you started succeeding, and let's try to link the before and the after together, and then weave that story in so that people can see, hey, it's a process, and that's my goal here. Is that okay with you?
Oh, totally.
How far back are we going?
I'm going to take you back to about 2005.
Okay.
So that was the year I graduated from college, and I started teaching high school English. And I knew pretty much when I went into my student teaching, even the year before, that couldn't be my whole life. It was terrible. And so I remember actually a very specific day. I'm a big Pearl Jam fan, and I have traveled since I was about 18 to see them in different places all over the world. And so I had just gotten my favorite Pearl Jam song tattooed on my hip the day before. So this is Given to Fly. And what it represents for me is just this, this overwhelming possibility of life, and the belief that you can create whatever you want. And so at the time, this was 2005, I think I had just gotten my first text message and was like confused by it a couple of months prior. I think this was even before.
Wait, how old were you in 2005? Because
23.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So so we're close. I think
I'm 40. Yeah. I'm 40 now.
I'm 2 years ahead of you and a lot more gray hair.
Yeah. So I remember after getting that tattoo and just thinking, like, because I had always in college kind of told lies to professors because I would want to like run off and go see Pearl Jam when they were, playing wherever, and my friends were going. And so I knew that I always wanted this life where there was freedom, particularly location freedom. And I just didn't know how that could happen. These types of businesses that you and I both have now would not have been possible then. And so, but I had this really powerful vision, and, I taught for a few years. I went to graduate school, and for something totally different, I have a master's in Holocaust and Genocide studies.
Wow.
And it's like a whole other story.
You watched Anne Frank and then took it or something like that?
No, I was always just really interested in the darker side of history. And I would teach units on Holocaust literature when I was in school. And I took actually several courses in my undergrad on Holocaust literature, and just really was interested. So long story short.
Let me ask you a question though. Let me ask you a question. And this is interesting because my daughter, she's going to college in France right now. She's in Paris. And she's always been very morbid, like in her interest, like she loves watching these gory kind of scenes. But Same. I also, and yes, like you, researching all the horrible atrocities, and believe me, the Japanese history has a lot of those.
Yes.
But I also realized that she's not afraid to get into the scary questions in her life, and she's actually running 2 businesses now.
Wow.
But she just dives right in. She doesn't have that kind of hesitation that a lot of people have. And I wonder if there's a connection, because there's the nitty-gritty parts of business and your internals that sometimes stop you from exploring deeper into what the real problem is. And I think that you're one of those kind of people that just, it doesn't put you off. And some people just, like I do. So I say some people, I'm talking about me. If something's scary, then I'll walk a lap around my mind or the block before I want to talk about it. But I wonder if there's a connection. I'm gonna think about that.
Yeah, I think for me, especially because I've been to a lot of places where there's been atrocity. I am involved in an organization in Sierra Leone that works with blood diamond victims, and I was there volunteering 3 years ago. And I think it just shows you, how much I'm in a very fortunate position to be born in America and to have the resources that I have. And I think it compels you to want to make the most of your life and what was given to you, and to be able to, of course, give back and help others as well. I think it, takes away maybe some of the insulation that so many of us have around us growing up in certain places. But that wasn't something that I was presented with. It was definitely something I sought myself. I don't know why. I've just always kind of been interested in, the darker side of humanity, which is funny because it's the opposite of, how my personality actually is. It's just interesting. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
We'll put a pin in that for now.
Yeah. So I had these kind of hopes and dreams when I was in graduate school of doing NGO work, or my big dream was working for the United Nations. And I ended up getting married while I was in graduate school, right after graduate school. And he was a federal agent. So his job took us to New York City. And I, was like, oh my gosh, here's the UN. I'm going to get hired. It's going to be so great. And then that didn't happen. Long story short. So I became a personal trainer because I was waiting tables again. And I was like, I can't do this and I don't want to go back to teaching. And so I ended up doing really well in corporate fitness and getting promoted and kind of managing the personal training department of an Equinox, which is a luxury health club here, and learned quickly that corporate fitness wasn't for me. So we had the opportunity for him to do a job transfer down to Southeast Georgia, which is where I decided to start my boot camp. And that's where I really had my entrepreneurial breakthrough. I chose to do that because there was nothing else there for me to do. It was the smallest town I'd ever really spent any time in, let alone lived in. And it was interesting because I was definitely scared to do it. And I was establishing myself with doctors, and I was meeting people, and I was telling them about this vision that I had for my fitness studio, which was so clear to me. It was for middle-aged women who want to lose weight. And I was a kettlebell specialist and nutrition specialist. And it was just so clear and so perfect to me. And everyone was like, yeah, that's a good idea, but no one's going to do that here. No one's interested in fitness here. I actually had a guy he was the wellness director of the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center where my ex-husband worked. And he met with me one day and he was like, it's a great idea, but if you want to make money around here, you should just sell barbecue out of the back of your car on the side of the road. And I was like, well, that's not very encouraging, but I did get involved with a community of fitness business owners, all over the world pretty early on before I even was fully committed to the decision. And
what year was this? So I get some perspective on.
That helped. Just seeing other people doing what I wanted to do, it built my belief in it, built my confidence so much. And I ended up hiring, it was a fitness business coaching company. I ended up hiring them and working with them the whole time that I had my fitness studio. And it just changed everything for me, getting that mentorship support early on. Not only did it build my belief that it was actually possible, but it also showed me the basics of the things that I didn't know. I'm so grateful that I was never naive enough to think that I could just figure out business by myself. So that was fantastic. And then about a year before I sold my studio, they actually recruited me. They asked me to come on board and coach for them. So I did. It was part-time at first, then it became full-time. And I was traveling the world for years for them, teaching fitness business, hosting events everywhere from Sydney to London and everywhere in between. And then so many jobs, it was a great learning experience. And then it wasn't great anymore. So we parted ways 5 years ago and here we are today. That's kind of how everything started.
Okay. So as you're going through that, which I love how you compress 10 years into 5 minutes. Yeah. I have a couple of questions. So you went and studied a completely different thing than fitness and nutrition and health. Was there a training period that you had to go through, some courses, or are you self-taught when it comes to health and fitness?
No. So I did get quite a lot of certifications, and it wasn't as random as it might sound. Actually, I was a competitive dancer all through high school, and I actually went for.
What is competitive dancing? Is that cheerleading or is
it's
ballroom dancing?
It's it's tap, jazz, ballet, lyrical, acrobat.
We're finding out so many things about you.
Yeah. Yeah, so I did that, and I actually went to college my first 2 years for dance, which is why it took me an extra year to graduate. I went back for my third year, and I was like, I don't want this to be my career anymore. So it was, and I was doing choreography at the time, so like it wasn't super random. I was dancing right up until probably a year before I left for graduate school. So fitness wasn't just something that was like totally random to me, and I was working out a lot at the time. But no, before so when I decided in New York that I was going to go get personal training certified, I actually took like pretty much right away. I did a 200-hour yoga teacher training. And then the following month, I did my personal training qualification. And then a couple months later went and got my first kettlebell certification, and then my second one. And then I got nutrition certified, and then I got more kettlebell certifications and barbell certifications and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of education that went into that.
Probably have like a phone book full of certifications by now then.
I don't know where they would be, but I'm probably in my basement somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you got involved with this coaching, the community, and you got some mentorship, and you launched what you have now. That was 5 years ago. So going from zero to where you are now, let's talk about that business journey. You said earlier that you said you're smart enough to know that you couldn't figure it out yourself and that you need some help. What were the mistakes that you think you would have made had you not gone into this mentorship program?
With my brick and mortar business?
Well, you said, I'm not sure if it was brick and mortar, but you said you got into a community, right?
So for that one, for sure, like I had no idea. I thought when I was starting my gym, when I would hear the word marketing, I thought that it meant you got a billboard. Like I didn't even really know what that meant. I thought you like buy one of those billboards that like car dealerships put their stuff on in town. So I had no idea anything about marketing. I had really bad mindset just around sales in general, because I'd never been taught to do it well before. And then, the other thing that was huge that they helped me with was just packaging and pricing my services. I think like my idea was like $49 a month unlimited boot camps, and that would have never worked. I would have either gone out of business, or I would have been probably burned out pretty early on and shut down. But instead, we hit 6 figures within the first 5 months, just the 6-figure run rate. And, I built it to multiple 6 figures and sold it for multiple 6 figures after just 3 years of start to sale, essentially. But then, when I was starting Authentic Conversion, at that point I had been doing fitness business coaching, not necessarily like running an online business myself, but I've been doing fitness business coaching for a long time, 3.5 years. And I had already been successful in my own business, but it was kind of like that whole feeling of starting over again. So I felt like just intuitively, I knew that there was something that like things that needed to shift in me. So I initially hired a mindset coach, I would say a couple months before I launched my business. And then I was starting to think I launched it, not with coaching. I launched it actually with a done for you content service first, but, which I still have. But when I was getting ready to think about launching a coaching business, I realized, like I really feel like I need some structure and strategy with this. So I found someone who did that. And that was such a game changer for me, because she kind of like mapped out the process, which is what I do for my clients now. And I went from like concept to selling the program within about 4 weeks. And I did about 20,000 in sales just in that first month of my launch. And the business has just kept kind of growing from there.
Is it confidential who this person is that helped you?
No, her name's Jessica Riverson. Yeah,
Okay.
she's fantastic. Yeah, she's very much like a soul mixed with strategy type of coach. We actually are doing some, I was with her for probably a year and a half, maybe a little bit less initially. And I've now been doing actually some private coaching with her again for the last almost year. So
That's super cool. I'm definitely going to look her up.
Yeah, she's great.
And she probably brags about you a lot.
I don't know, but she's great. I'm forever grateful to her. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So now we've got this online system that she helped you to figure out mindset around marketing and sales. And I don't think you've ever had a problem with hard work, because maintaining, health and fitness and running a brick and mortar business, that's going to take a ton of hard work. What do you think is the biggest difference that well, it's obvious. I was going to say between brick and mortar and online. It's too obvious. But what I was going to say is like the way you think about it, right? Brick and mortar, you have to have a certain amount of square feet so that you could fit this many people. You have to buy physical equipment. And then once it's virtual, like what you're doing now, you had to completely did it feel like you're reinventing everything, or did it feel like there's a lot of things you can use and adapt?
So actually, when I launched my coaching programs initially, it was more for brick and mortar business owners, but pretty quickly I started having people who wanted to launch an online arm of their business. So for a while, it was kind of both. And now I have clients who've been coaching with me for the whole time I've been offering coaching. So 4+ years. So I have a few brick and mortar operators still, but they all have online arms of their business now as well. So there's actually quite a lot of overlap, I think, in terms of the strategy that can build both of those businesses. But yeah, I mean, obviously, like there's more overhead when it comes to brick and mortar. Service delivery is different. Team management's different. Yeah, there's a lot of differences. But in terms of the growth strategy, there can be, I think, a good amount of overlap.
That's super good to know. Now, at what point did you start creating content of yourself, like in front of a camera, recording it, and into the wilderness of the web?
I would say 2011. Yeah. Okay. But it was like, I don't even know what I was doing. It was when people were just like posting stuff on YouTube. So I would like film workouts and put them on YouTube, or like, I remember, and I wasn't doing it to make money. It was just kind of for fun. And then I would do like on Facebook or whatever, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to do like a no sugar challenge this week or whatever, who wants to join me? And I would kind of like lead people through that. But yeah, I never like did that to make money, but I started doing video pretty early on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And even though you weren't doing it to make money, did it ever bring you business? And like,
and probably not that early stuff, but I from pretty early stages in my fitness business, I would say yes. And of course, everything worked differently 10 years ago. People weren't really using social media for business at that time. So I had a blog and would do content and videos for the blog and for an email list and things like that. So yeah, it's been a really long time creating content.
Okay. Yeah. And that seems to also be another one of these disciplines that come like naturally for you because you've done it for so long.
Well, and I think part of my discipline is personality type. Like in every personality test, I am like the entrepreneur. I'm like an Enneagram 3. I just am that personality type. So there's definitely that component to it. But, this is kind of what I said earlier, we all have different value systems, right? My top value system is business, it's success, it's building wealth. It's that, right? Other people's top values might be family or, fitness or whatever. And so it's actually really easy for me. I'm in a mastermind now where we talk about this stuff all the time, where if you can change your values, then you can change everything in your life. And so it's not to say that, having your business as your top value is better than having anything else. It just makes it really easy for me because it's like, if this is the priority, I'm going to be disciplined enough to do whatever it takes. Whereas, if let's say like marriage or relationships or whatever were my top priority, then I would probably, be more committed to doing other things in that area. Or if I like wanted to compete as a bodybuilder and that was my top priority, I would have completely different focuses in my life. So I just think that's, I think that's an important point to reflect. It does help to make it easier. So
yeah. And
still have to do the work, of course.
and once you took these personality tests, did that also kind of direct how you operate and think about everything, like to lean into your strength, or was it more like, oh, that's good to know?
Well, kind of helped me understand other people better. Because sometimes I don't understand other people. Like I don't understand how consistency is a problem for people. I don't understand how coming up with content isn't easy for people. There's just certain things that are so natural to me, again, because of what I value, that there's this account on Instagram, and I don't know if you've taken the Enneagram test. But that's one of my favorite personality tests. And there's a therapist who has an account where he does all kinds of stuff, but he basically uses the Enneagram through his therapy, and he will make these like meme series where he juxtaposes, like if you're a 1, this is your response. If you're a 2, this is your response. And seeing that actually was probably the most eye-opening thing in going, oh, Nicole, like this is why other people struggle with the stuff that you find so easy and get frustrated with people for struggling for. And then of course, realizing at a greater level, differences in values and things like that. And it's allowed me to help to kind of detach from other people and what their priorities are, and to allow people to be on their own journey. Yeah. Versus wanting everyone to do it with the intensity that I like to do it.
And do you do this with your coaching clients so you can understand them better, as have them take the Enneagram test?
No, I mean, it's something they certainly could do. I don't work with anyone one-on-one. So, it would be hard for us to integrate that level of focus with a group coaching program. But no, I think it's just a really, the more self-awareness we can all have, the more we can, as you were saying, operate with your strengths, but also say, hey, there are other things I would like to accomplish in life. Maybe it's not the most natural thing for me to approach X, Y, and Z this way. And here's why, but I can still, make that a priority for myself.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, the current model of your business, I want to analyze this a little bit. And what is the thing that's bringing in the leads the most right now? That means, for people listening, leads are basically people who are interested and probably qualified in buying what you have to offer. Give us kind of like the wide, I guess the short version and kind of the broad picture of what it is, because I know there's a ton of details, but what's working?
Yeah. So ultimately, I have a couple different coaching programs. My entry-level coaching program is a 16-week marketing intensive. And basically what we do is we teach online offer creation, marketing, and sales strategy. And so with that, I basically still use the strategy that I teach in that program. And so I was building this business completely organically through social media and email marketing. I teach offline strategies and things like that within the program as well. They don't quite apply to the type of business that I have now, but we teach a ton of different ways. But I built it I would say we did everything organically till I was at about $500,000 a year in revenue, maybe just a little bit less. And then we started running ads. But
how long did that take to get to that $500,000 mark?
About 15 months. Yeah, okay. It wasn't very long. So less than a year and a half. And then over time, I did things like, do more paid lead generation, driving to my email list, started building and growing a Facebook group. But what's interesting about our strategy when it comes to lead generation is we still do a lot of organic. I get a lot of referrals. I get a lot of people adding their friends. I do a lot of podcasts and, kind of ways of leveraging other people's audiences and things like that. I have my own podcast, which has been really amazing. And then a lot of what we do is paid lead generation for email list building and for group growth. And what's cool about the way that we do it is because I don't do sales calls or anything like that in my business. So what we do is we pay to bring more people into my audience, and then we rely on my content. And the fact that the content really is so good and that I'm so committed to nurturing my audience. And I do show up every day for people and it's not hard. It's not taking me a ton of time. It's just the commitment to do so. And that is ultimately, then we start to offer people different opportunities for conversion. And that's where our clients come from every single month. So most of our leads now, I would say, come from paid ads, but we don't try to sell from our ads. We don't have a call to action to schedule a call because we don't do that. So we have a process of just bringing people into our world and then really showing up and delivering a lot of value. And then people typically come over the line.
Okay. So let me break this down. You're running some ads, and the ads are mostly text or image or video or combination of all of them?
Both. Yeah, both.
Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm. And then when people click the ad, they're encouraged to join your community, right?
Yeah. They're typically opting in for something, whether it's a lead magnet or a webinar or something like that. Okay. So they're coming into my email list and then they get an immediate invite to join my group, which a lot of people do. A surprising number of people actually that click and take that next step. Yeah.
And then from there, you're nurturing them, whether through email sequences or through content inside the group, right?
Mm-hmm. Or I create typically new email copy every week, a couple times a week as well. So that they're getting that as well. Yeah.
Okay. And then if and when they're ready, they because you go live every day, then they know exactly what to do. Click this link and pay here.
Yeah, I don't go live every day. That would be a lot, but we offer people usually every week, if not every other week, different opportunities to convert. So I run a lot of free challenges, webinars, workshops, trainings, that kind of thing. And then we have our kind of process on the back end of that. But I'm a big believer in like, giving before you receive.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's worked really well for me.
That's super cool. That's super cool.
Yeah.
And was it ever like a lot of people have the 7 figures is like a big deal to people. And like if you're a 7-figure business owner, and sadly 7 figures is not what it used to be, like in the sense of like if you're not making 7 figures, then it's hard to call yourself a legitimate business these days. But was that a number for you, like a hard-hitting goal for you at some point?
Not really, to be honest. When I first started Authentic Conversion, my goal initially was just to get back to earning $10,000 a month. Like, there was a time where I was earning that and I liked that. I'd never really earned more than that. And so, but I did that pretty fast. So it was, I didn't really launch my coaching program until about month 6 of this business, but I did hit that in month 6 and never went back. So yeah, I mean, I hung out in like the 20 to 30K range for a pretty long time. And I was like, this is cool. And then, and then it kept kind of growing, like, over time. It wasn't quite the acceleration from the beginning. But what actually happened was I was on a mastermind call. I was on a group coaching call with my coach at the time and other clients. And I don't know why, but she said to everyone, yeah, Nicole's working on, hitting her first million. And I wasn't, because I had never said that to her and I never thought it before. So, but the idea was planted and I was like, oh, that's like really interesting. I bet I could do that. And I don't remember when that was, but I hit the 7-figure run rate monthly for the first time, month 21 in business. So it was within less than 2 years. We didn't generate $1 million cash until year 3, but it was like 1.6 million that year.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That could be a coaching hack, so-and-so's goal is
just plant the idea.
Plant the idea and just blow it off as a mistake. Yeah. That's really interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's the best mind hack I've ever heard. It's inception, isn't it?
The power of suggestion. Yeah.
There you go. So right now, I know that you do have a lot of people you're coaching. When it comes to content creation, what's like the go-to for people just starting out? Like, what do you tell them to do? Like make 30 videos in 30 days. Some people say go live. Some people say, follow this formula or this script.
I'm a believer of like mixing it up, because for some people in their audiences, video content will work better. For some people, written content, for some people, long form, for some people, short form. So what I actually teach my clients to do when they first come into the program is mix it up and do that variety. But in terms of like content topics, what I'm always focused on is helping them become both the trusted friend and the go-to expert simultaneously. So I give them, an outline for what they can do for their content 7 days a week so that they don't get stuck or like they're not overthinking it and they can move through writer's block with ease. But what we want them to do is the friend side, right, where they're sharing stories, struggles, lessons, etc., and also the expert side where they're sharing client transformations and testimonials and handling objections through their content and, speaking to people and their pain points and their desires and all of those things. So I'm really big on that 50-50 friend and expert, because what I found is a lot of coaches, they're so far onto the friend side of things where, they're like inspiring, but they don't actually get clients. And then especially like with a background in the health and fitness industry, sometimes people are so in the expert side where they're like sharing their own workouts and, their own meals and stuff all the time. And it's all about them, that it can kind of make them untouchable or unrelatable to the average person. So my focus is on creating that balance and just showing up consistently, because that tends to be the hardest part for people. And I remember the year after I started this business, it was only about a year old. I remember different friends and colleagues that I've known in the industry for a long time reaching out to me and saying, it looks like you're doing really well. Like, what's the secret? What are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just consistent. Like, how you're not posting on social media ever? Well, I'm doing it every day. And just more consistent. That's like always the answer. And of course, like, you develop and refine your skills and everything, but that was the answer then.
No, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. Like I've recently been auditing a lot of social media accounts. People you've probably heard of, Grant Cardone, Alex Hormozi, Simon Sinek, Chris Dope, different people in different industries. And I'm seeing that the people at the top, like we count how many posts they're doing per day, what channels they're going on, which ones are hitting, which ones are not. And every single one of them are consistent like crazy. The people at the top are doing at least 2 posts a day per platform. And then it really does scale to, I don't know if it's a chicken or the egg, like, is it because they're posting so much that they got there? Or as a result that they're getting so much attention, they have to feed their audience faster, or they just kind of step ladder together. But
maybe both. Yeah.
Yeah. The consistency is extremely, extremely tight at the people on the top. And that's one thing I've noticed across the board. You don't put out random shit and expect to succeed, at least not consistently. You might have a random viral hit that brings a bunch of leads, but that's not going to feed you a month from now, right?
Right. Well, and consistency is a trust builder or trust breaker. The more consistent you are, the more trustworthy you inherently are. If you're one of those people who shows up when they feel like it, and you were consistent for a week and then you disappear, that actually is damaging to how people view and trust you, I believe.
No, it's true. It's absolutely true.
Yeah.
What are the mistakes you're seeing right now among other coaches? I mean, we've covered consistency. What else are you seeing? People who are trying to break into, let's say, similar industry to yours, fitness coaching, business coaching kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, so I think a lot of like what you see out there, particularly in the business coaching industry now, is a lot of, I just call them like the one tactic approach. So it's like, oh, you just need this Facebook group and then you'll make all the money, or you just need this ad, and then you'll make all the money, or you just need to learn how to post on Instagram and then you make all the money. And I think because I've had such a diverse background in building a brick and mortar, I've been doing this longer than most of these people have been out of high school. And what I know to be true is that it's not one thing that builds and grows a business. It's not just to have a Facebook group. It's not, the magical ad that hasn't been a thing since like 2015. So I think that, the one tactic approach is definitely a problem in the industry. And I have a lot of coaches telling me I've been posting every day for 6 months and I don't get clients. I'm like, well, what else do you do? And they're like, that's it. And I'm like, that's why that's not a conversion strategy. Right. And I think also, mistakes are not paying attention to the trends of the market, because I can tell you, even since starting Authentic Conversion in January 2018, the market has changed so much, and actually, back in 2013, when Facebook ads for small business first became a thing, it was like having a slot machine that worked every time. You would put money in. It didn't need to be good copy. You didn't have to have a good sales page, and people you didn't know would send you money, and it worked every time. And that was really sweet for a while. And even as early as 2015, before I sold my gym, I started to notice that it was getting harder, that it was getting more expensive, that things needed to be more dialed in. And then you had, the phase of the automated webinar funnel, right? Or like the automated sales call funnels and things like that. And around 2018, 2019, those kind of went out of style, right? And ads have gotten consistently harder ever since. And I think also, there is just so much more noise in the online space now. That's not going to change. It's not a bad thing. It just forces you to step up and do it better and to do it differently and to really have a unique voice and a unique presence in the marketplace, because trying to use these outdated tactics. So, and I think it's different for every market, right? Like, I think it depends on who you work with. There are business coaches out there who work with, people already making hundreds of thousands or, millions. And it's much easier to sell from like a post or an Instagram story to those types of people, from my experience, versus the types of clients that I choose to work with, who are mostly newer entrepreneurs, who have a lot more fear, who, don't already have the cash flow. So the investment has to come from a different place. And they just need to start to see what's possible for themselves and have that belief in themselves. And they have to resonate with you also. So, there's different things that work for different markets for sure. But I think that, if we're trying to use tactics that stopped working years ago, like, it just blows my mind that people are still telling people to set up ad funnels that have a call to action to book a call. I'm like, no one's going to buy coaching that way anymore. And maybe in certain markets, and maybe if you have a certain status to your name, but in general. So I think that, really getting people right with the fact that you do have to earn the right to offer someone a sale, that no one owes us anything. Just because you've been consistent for 3 months doesn't mean anyone needs to buy from you, because there's people who have been consistent for 3 years and 10 years, right? So it's like, I think always being in the mindset of playing the long game. And I always share with my group and things like that, the coaching industry turnover rate is 80 to 90% in the first year. So most coaches don't even make it past the first year. And I think that most are not prepared to do what it takes to be successful. And what I'm not talking about is the 24/7 grind mentality. I don't believe in that. I don't want to work like that either. But I think to invest the time, the energy, and the money that's required is something so few people are willing to actually do, because it's really nice to say, yes, I want an online business. Yes, I want to make 6 figures and be able to work from anywhere. And I want to be able to set my own schedule and all of that stuff. But there's a cost to that, right? And it's partially a monetary cost. You have to be willing to invest in yourself and your business growth. It's crazy to me that people think they can start a business without capital or without putting some money into it. But also, I did a whole podcast episode last week. I'm like, what is your relationship with your business like? Because your relationship with your business needs to be like a relationship with a baby or a puppy. It's something that requires your attention every day. It's something that you have to feed in different ways. It's not just something that magically happens. And again, I think that most people enter the industry because it sounds great, because it is great, but you got to do what it takes also, which, by the way, in my experience is like way less than working a full-time job. It's like, It's not nearly as painful, but I think the thing that trips people up is, number one, they just like dabble, or they're not really serious, or they don't get coaching support. They have no idea what they're doing and they don't make money. So I think that's the first part. But I think also, for people who are taking steps and making strides forward, they don't know how to handle the emotion of their business, right? Mm-hmm. So the entrepreneurial roller coaster, the highs and the lows that can all happen within one day, the uncertainty that happens. All of life is uncertain. It's just an illusion if it's anything other than that. But it's like all of these things that I think take people out of the industry so quickly. So, that's a little bit of my perspective. And I want less people who are really good and passionate coaches leaving the industry because they don't make any money, or because they don't know what to expect when it comes to building a business. Yeah.
You mentioned before the Enneagram test. Do you see a certain profile that does better in business in general, or especially the coaching business?
Well, I'm a 3, so that's like the entrepreneur, I would say. I think any of them can be, to be honest. I don't think I would ever put anyone in a box, but that's the type that's most focused on this aspect of life, we'll say. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Like achievement and that kind of thing.
As you're going through all that, a couple of questions came to my mind. Now, when it comes to consistency of creating content, which is my passion, is content creation. But are you seeing when you pick your topics, or you encourage your clients around what they talk about, is this something that you research and schedule out, or is it more like something that comes from the heart, from experience, from gut, or is it a blend? Like, you said you like to mix things up. Can you talk a bit about that process?
I would say for me, it's mostly inspired action, right? So for people who struggle with the discipline of the consistency, I don't necessarily recommend this. I would like for them to at least outline, a week or so in advance what they're going to be talking about for that week. Because then I think before you're in the habit of consistency, you can just forget, or you can be like, I don't know what to do. I'm just not going to do anything. But I definitely take a lot of inspired action. So like, for example, just an idea for a podcast will come to me, and I'll make a note of it in my calendar, and I'll, record it as soon as I have a chance to do that. I don't typically write out notes for my podcast. I don't script anything. I just go.
Yes.
Unless there's like a few points I want to make sure I hit, then I might write a little note. But yeah, usually it's from the heart. Yeah.
So like, so many people get tripped up on, they need to do this SEO research. They need to research the competition. They need to blah, 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 blah. I think that like maybe at an agency level or corporate level, that makes sense. But if it's your personal brand, that people are following you because of you, right? They're not following you because of the algorithm. Maybe the algorithm will help them find you, but they continue to follow you because of you. So that is super interesting. And
I've never concerned myself with SEO, not once in this business. Like, I don't even care at all. I don't know. And then I also ignore my competition. So it's like the opposite. Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. Now, right now, you said you're in several different masterminds or groups and things like that. How many is that? Just so I get a perspective on this.
Yeah. Well, I just concluded a mastermind that I think you know about. And I'm in another one. which is all like really just about mental reprogramming work, which has been really powerful for me. And then I work with 4 private mentors as well. Plus I have a marketing consultant. So, but really actually the last year or so, it's funny because, you always think like you're missing something. I'm like, okay, I need to learn, more strategy or like better sales skills, and I think everything has a time and place. I went through a mastermind 2 years ago that taught me my process that I use now to sell without sales calls. And it changed my life. It totally changed my world. And so, that was one of the most powerful coaching experiences I've ever been in, was literally just having something that was so tangible that changed things instantly for me. So, there's things like that. There's things like the mastermind, that I was in, you're probably still in, but where you kind of like learn these different tactics and you kind of just take what applies. But really for the last year, I haven't changed my strategy much in my business the last few years. And I'm always like looking for that next idea. And then I realized like every time I try to get creative, like it doesn't work. So I'm like, go back to the things that work and stop trying to be fancy with everything, because I get bored with it. Right. But since August last year, I took my dog. She's sleeping in her bed right now. I thought I was going to be late for our interview because we were at the vet. She's going to Mexico with me on Saturday. So she had to get her health certificate. She's traveled all over the world, but we were in Switzerland for 5 weeks, in August. And it was just a really powerful kind of growth experience. She and I were in the Alps. We were hiking every single day. It was beautiful. And at that time, I started doing some work with a spiritual mentor. And she's someone I work really closely with now. I'm actually like, it's not just coaching. It's like, I'm actually in a mentorship program with her. I'm learning a lot. And then the other 3 private mentors that I have are all really in that realm as well, just in different ways. And it's interesting that the mastermind that I've settled on now, it's no strategy. It's all the mind. Right. And so I can say the work that, we've added about 30% by the end of this year. We should have added about 30% in revenue to the business, 2021 into 2022, which is big when you're already in the millions. And the only thing I've changed is like the amount of mental work that I've been doing and the amount of energetic work. So that's pretty cool.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
We got to wrap this up soon. I want to respect your time. If you could do something different, if you could rewind time 10 years, and you could change one thing, what would that one thing be?
Oh my gosh.
At any point over the past 10 years?
I don't know that there's a lot that I would change, because I think it all played a role in getting me to where I am today. I think the only thing that kind of instantly comes to mind, and I don't even know that I would have changed it, but I was really, the job that I had doing fitness business coaching, working for this other company, it was really amazing for a couple of years. And then it wasn't. And it was a really unhealthy environment for me to stay in. And I stayed probably a year to a year and a half longer than I wanted to, because I was scared. I'd already like built this certain level of success with a brick and mortar business. I had money in the bank. I sold that business, and I was kind of doing, like, as I was working for them, I was kind of doing some online weight loss coaching as well, but I was like so over weight loss coaching, but I didn't really know what else to do. I couldn't compete with them. So I was like doing that, and I would make a few $1,000s one month and then not really much the next. So it wasn't something that I could live off of, but it was like, I was looking for a solution. But at that time I was single, and I own a house, and I was like the mortgage, and I was just scared, right? I was scared to take that leap, even though I was so unhappy, because I wanted that stability and that certainty. And then, that was no longer an option. And I mean, within almost no time, I replaced what I made there. And now my business, I would say, averages more than twice what I used to make in a month in a day. So it's like, I just, and I think I lost a lot of confidence through some of the experiences that I had working for them, just in different like situations that transpired. Like there were times that made me feel like I was really good and I was on top of the world. And then in that last year to year and a half, things that happened made me feel like I really wasn't that good. And so, yeah, I don't know. I lost that belief in myself somewhere in the middle. And I wish I could tell myself now that it would be okay. Because it was stressful to stay in a miserable situation for over a year.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I think that from the outside, people would never guess about all the insecurities that entrepreneurs have, especially if they're not entrepreneur themselves. And I get that a lot too. Like you have no idea what's going on inside, and we're just human. We're just human.
Yeah.
It's crazy. All right, look, if there's any last words of wisdom that you have from experience for somebody who is trying to take their content game to the next level to actually like generate leads for their business, is there one piece of advice you give to that person?
I would say become a really good listener, right? Like become a really good listener and speak to people where they are from their perspective, and also infuse your absolute most authentic voice into all of it. Because, if you can connect with people and you're saying things that they resonate with, and you can also bring your personality, your values, your brand voice, all of that into it, I think that's like the most powerful combination of things. So
that's perfect. Thank you so much. And if somebody were wanting to find more about you, or perhaps join your group, find out more about the courses you offer and stuff, where should they go?
Yeah, we're actually having the website redone right now. So I'll send you to the Facebook group, which is Authentic Conversion. That's my business name. And then it says Organic Six-Figure Online Coaching Business.
Okay. Guys, we'll put the link down below on YouTube. It'll be in the description. If you're listening to the podcast, check out the show notes and make sure you get into her group. And I highly encourage you personally to do it, because I'm in it and I enjoy the stuff that Nicole's been putting out. Nicole Spencer, thank you so much for joining me.
Yes,
and I really did enjoy this session that we had together.
Yes,
guys, that's it. And I will see you next time.